Hi again, Kings fans. Nick Nixon here, and welcome to another one of our Kings Legends chats. Back in 1982-83, the NHL decided to name an all-rookie team after each season. And so we've had all-rookie teams for almost 40 years now. And the only time in league history that one team had three players on the all-rookie team in the same year was 1986-87, and the LA Kings had three players on that team, and they all join us now. We're so glad to have them with us. Steve Duchesne, defenseman, Jimmy Carson, center, and lucky Luc Robitaille, the NHL's all-time leading scoring left winger. Guys, thanks for joining us. And as we've done on previous chats, we want to kind of catch up with you and find out where you are, what you're doing. And Steve, we'll start with you. What's keeping you busy these days, and where are you calling home?
Well, I don't really have a home yet, but I'm in Dallas, Texas right now. We just sold our house about a year ago, and lived in Quebec. Charlevoix area, beautiful area, last September, before COVID, and we were there for the business that I'm involved with, and I want to be there and help develop the project that we're doing. So I was in Quebec, and it was our first winter in a long time. So my wife, thank goodness, she hasn't divorced me. We're still together. So, but we really. It was good to be back to my roots and then speak French again. And so that's what I've been doing. This summer I'm here in Dallas. My mother-in-law, Tracy, lost her father last summer. She's 92, so we're here to help a little bit. And I was planning to go back to Quebec, but with everything that's going on right now, we're gonna take one step at a time and see what's next.
Sure. Jimmy, we saw you a couple of years ago at Staples Center for a Legends Night. The Kings honored players from the past and have done so for a number of years. Kind of catch us up. I know you're back basically where you grew up in the Detroit area.
Yeah, well, we live in Rochester, Michigan, which is just a suburb of Detroit, not too far from where I grew up, and married with 4 kids, and getting through this whole COVID situation as the rest of the world is. Been here pretty much since career ended, and a lot of family and friends here, so this is home.
And what keeps you busy work-wise?
Well, I'm in the financial services business. I've been doing that for 20 some odd years, so that's been very good. And then have some sideline businesses that I've invested in and have some partners. Don't really operate them, but I'm kind of, on the general board.
Luke, what have you been doing since you're retired?
Not much. How with you?
Luke, of course, is the president of the Kings. Luke, pretty much since you retired as a player, you've transitioned into the Kings front office. Just talk about the experience you've had moving from player into, I guess you could say, the business world.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting just to see, just to know where our franchise was at the time to where it's at today. For me, I mean, like Jimmy and Steve, when you start with a franchise, when it's your first franchise, it always feels kind of special. Like that's, as a player, you never forget that first time you step on the ice to play in the NHL. So I've always felt the Kings I was part of this franchise. I think we all feel to a certain degree we grew up in LA. And so for me to still be involved with the franchise that I dearly love so much and to help the franchise get to the next level. We had a good run for a while, and now we're on a step where we're trying to get to our next run. So it's a lot of fun and just to be involved with a lot of good people, but at the same time influence the franchise that I love so much.
Yeah, and Luke, you mentioned breaking in with the Kings, and you were all rookies together, obviously, in that same year, 86, 87. Kind of took different paths to get to the NHL. By that, I mean, you weren't all first-round picks. Jimmy was second overall in his draft year. Luke, you were a ninth-round pick, and Steve was never drafted. So, yeah, I guess it just goes to show that scouting is not an exact science. But before we get to your first year as a King in 86, 87, where you all kind of stepped in and had an immediate impact, another thing you have in common, the three of you all played in the Quebec Major Junior League. Luke and Steve grew up in that province, so that's kind of a no-brainer to me. But Jimmy, talk about your decision, how you got from playing minor hockey in Detroit to playing in Quebec, and why you decided that route was going to be the best for you.
So back then, so growing up as an American, back then you had a choice. Either you would go to college and play, if your path was try to get to the NHL, or you could go to either of the three junior leagues in Canada, the Ontario, Quebec, or the Western Hockey League. Now it's not quite like that, and the USHL wasn't around. So I played for the CompuWare program, so we were an elite travel program, and then so I was playing up a year. So after I was 16, would have had 2 years to play if I wanted to go the college route, and there really wasn't. I could play one more year midget. I think it's still called midget, but back then. So for me, what really influenced me was Pat LaFontaine, who was also a Detroit kid, CompuWare guy. He had just left. He made the same choice. He was a couple years older, and he went to Verdun, where I ended up going in the Quebec Junior Hockey League. So I started making the rounds around the Ontario League, Western Canada, and Quebec, and very quickly through Pat's advice, and I really liked the fact that they were owned by the Montreal Canadiens, and they were showing a lot of interest and saying, this is a good path. So that kind of just felt right, and that was kind of the impetus for me to go that way.
And how quickly did you learn French?
Well, it's funny. My idol was always Guy Lafleur growing up in the Canadiens, and which Luke will appreciate when we ended up being rookies, and then Marcel was our, we would ride with Marcel. He would always razz me on that. How could you have him as your idol and not me? But anyway, so I was actually taking French in school. I thought it was cool because you'd listen in Hockey Night Canada in Detroit was always the Maple Leaf game, and they were terrible. So I would always look for the French station to find the Canadians, and they'd be, speaking in French, etc. So I was taking French in school for a couple of years. So then once I went to Quebec and lived with the French Canadian family, I made it a priority to try to learn.
And Steve, how about you? And again, give us a sense. Seven Isles, Sept-Îles in Quebec,
Yeah.
right almost where the St. Lawrence empties out into the bay. Just for everybody watching and listening, give us a sense for how far northeast of Montreal that is.
It's really far.
We used to.
Hold on, let me help you, Steve. The winter is one day. The summer is one day. Steve used to have a golf tournament, and it was the one day of the year that they thought the weather would be nice. And that's the day he had his tournament. That's it. And no trees is taller than about 8 feet because none of them wants to go above the other one. It's so cold. Okay, go ahead.
It's so funny. I remember those days having a golf tournament, Luke, and you coming. But yeah, I mean, it's the home of Guy Carbonneau and Carl Dijkhuis. The three of us were born in Sept-Îles, and so yeah, it was. We had to leave Sept-Îles to really being seen in those days. And at age 16, I went to the AAA collegiate in Saint-Georges-de-Beauce. I don't even know if that still exists, but I played there half a season and was drafted in the 12th round, last round for the Drummondville Voltigeurs in the Quebec League. So, and from there I was, I kept gaining confidence and playing better. I was a late bloomer, really. I thought at age 18 I would get drafted. I remember Laurent Lapointe calling me. It was with Washington in those days. And stay by the phone, and Washington is going to draft you. So, but they never did, and I was really Alex Smart. Remember, Lucky Jimmy Alex Smart had sent me a letter in those days and to invite me to the Kings camp, and that really what changed everything for me. From when I came back, I went to training camp in LA, and when I came back to the juniors, I had an unbelievable season. It really somehow built my confidence to play better and better. And same thing happened in the NHL with Pat Quinn.
Yeah, yeah. Luke, how about you? I mean, you grew up in the Montreal area, and as we talked about, and it's chronicled, you were not a high NHL draft pick. How about when you decided or went to juniors? Were you a high pick going from, I guess, the midget program and in that area to your junior team at Hull?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like Jimmy was talking about going to college. I actually was interested in going to college. No one called me though. In those days it was kind of, maybe they I didn't have an agent, or you didn't really know how things worked out, and I didn't really know how the junior draft was going to happen. But I did get picked in 4th overall, but no one had ever called me. The City Hall where I ended up playing, they never talked to me, and I remember the first 2 picks were high-end picks. They were big names. Stéphane Richer that played for Montreal Canadiens, and the other guy his name was José Charbonneau. And these guys came out 1 and 2. And then at 3, I remember I told my dad, I said, because it was a draft, it was in some type of I think it was in an old rink. It was the Rocket Richard rink, actually. And I ran to the bathroom, and when I came out, I heard my name. So it's kind of funny. But to come back on what Steve says, Nick, which is pretty cool, the 3 of us, I'm sure more scouts saw Jimmy, with the Kings. In those days, there weren't a lot of scouts for each organization, but the same scout scouted us, Mr. Smart, which is truly incredible. You think about it, like he's the one that he was in charge of the Quebec League, and he's the only one that I know that was believing in me. He's the only one that believed in Steve, and I'm sure he pushed real hard to get Jimmy with our 2nd overall pick. I don't know who the other players were, but it's amazing that one gentleman like that had the vision to see 3 kids that had a passion for the game.
So classy. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember a story, and I don't know, Alex Smart might have told me this, that he was begging in the preseason, either in 85 or 86, because Steve played a year in the American Hockey League before he joined the Kings, but he was begging with the GM and all the hockey people, you've got to let Steve Duchesne play some games here in the preseason. You got to give him a chance. And and that was going to be a transitioning question from juniors. I know back then, Luke, you talked about it. Kings probably had 4 or 5 at the most full-time scouts back then, as did all the other teams. Now it's upwards of 15, 18 full-time scouts. But Alex Smart covered the area, the Quebec League that you guys played in. And Jimmy, do you recall, I mean, when you're playing in juniors and you're 16, 17, 18, knowing who the scouts are that are watching you guys play? And were you aware that Alex Smart was watching you and your games?
Yeah, we were really aware because, like I said earlier, we were owned by the Montreal Canadiens, and quite often Serge Savard, who was the Canadiens were one of the elite teams at the time, and they had just won the Cup, I believe, in '84, which is right kind of the junior time we were there, and so Serge Savard would come. Like our games were Friday, Sunday. The Canadiens played Saturday, so they almost every Friday or Sunday he would be there with kind of his entourage of Montreal Canadiens, and you would see all the scouts coming in from different GMs, and of course the 3 of us we loved hockey, and we knew who a lot of the people were, so you would see like a bunch of GMs there or top people. So I remember like Jimmy Devellano or Cliff Fletcher, or like you knew certain people were there because they'd all go up to Serge's box and kind of pay homage, or at least talk to him. And then you would see, like during warm-ups, you could just see, like you all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, that guy's a GM of so-and-so. And you know, I mean, you don't know exactly if they were to come see you, but you just say, okay, let's have a good game here because there's a lot of people in the stands.
Yeah. Steve, is that what you recall? I mean, do you have a memory of seeing a guy like Alex Smart watching you?
Yeah, I
Because
remember.
obviously he was the one that, because you were not drafted, he probably had a big hand in telling the Kings to sign you as a free agent.
You sure did, and well, obviously I couldn't speak a word of English. I still can't speak very good English, but in those days, boom boom meilleur. I don't know, Luke, if you remember boom boom meilleur.
Yeah, boom boom mayor. Oh, everyone knows him.
So he was a scout that is the one that introduced me to Mr. Smart, and that.
Scout, he was the trainer for the Canadians. He was in the
That's
locker
right.
room.
That's right, and he became an agent later
Yeah.
on. So that's how it went for me, and I didn't know, I couldn't really communicate that well, but yeah, he was so classy. And I remember in camp meeting with him and trying to get me going. So, and I appreciated that. I mean, that's obviously changed my life.
Yeah, yeah.
For
All right,
me,
let's talk
Nick,
about your rookie year in the NHL, 86, 87.
Hey Nick, so
Yeah.
Mr. Smart, like I got a story how I met him. Is I knew nothing. No one had ever talked to me during the year, and our team was really bad my first year junior, so we never knew if there was any scouts in the stand. So we would play on Sunday, and sometimes we would get Monday off, practice, and then if our next game was Thursday. So my first year was Marty Lemieux's last year in junior. So what I would do is I would go to school in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I would drive to Montreal, which is a 2-hour drive, go watch the game with my dad. So I did that maybe 4 or 5 times that year because Mario was absolutely incredible to watch, And I remember standing in a corner between peers, and this gentleman comes next to me. My dad was to my left, and he gets to my right, and he grabs my arm and he goes, "Hey kid," and he starts talking to me, and it was Mr. Smart. But what he did is he always kind of felt your arm to see if you were muscular. And
That's right. I remember that.
I didn't know the first time, and he told me he worked with the Kings, and he said he saw all our games in Hall, and he asked me if I liked it, and I was trying to my best English to talk like I understood what he says. So from then on, I was like, oh my God, the scouts from the Kings talked to me. And then later in the year, he actually came and to meet me after a game. And I never forgot, the first thing he did is he grabbed my arm, and I just flexed as much as I could.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, NHL rookie season. And for the three of you, I did a little research. Didn't take each of you long to get your first goal, which always takes some of the edge off, I guess, when you're breaking into a league like the NHL. Luke, in your very first game. Jimmy, I think it was your second game. And Steve, in your third game.
All right.
Luke, opening night, St. Louis Blues. What do you remember? First period, right? Against the Blues, you get NHL goal number 1 of 668.
Yeah, I clearly remember, like for me, because in that days, and Jimmy will remember that, they put Jimmy, Dave Taylor was playing with Jimmy, correct, Jimmy? And Jimmy was playing center.
And you were Marcel.
I can't remember who your left wing was.
You can't remember Morris Lukowicz?
Oh, it was Morris, that's right. But so the first line was basically Bernie, Tigers, and Jim Fox. And then Jimmy had his line, and then I can't remember who our fourth line with. Phil Sykes was on it. I do recall that. And I was on the line with Marcel and Brian Erickson. And, we were, the three of us the year before were playing junior. They didn't count times in those days, but I bet you we were all playing 20 to 25 minutes a game. So you turn pro, and it's a lot different. You're really rolling 4 lines and everything. And I'll never forget, Bernie started the game, and I think Jimmy went his line. And then for some reason, I think Pat Quinn was matching, so he put our fourth line to play against their fourth line. And I'm on the bench, I'm like shaking my legs. And I'll never forget, Marcel grabs my leg. He says, "Calm down, kid. We're going to go. We're going to go." And I think it was Phil Sykes. He dumped the puck, and he came to the bench, and he was far. And I just jumped because Marcel was already on the ice. And it was Rick Wamsley. He went behind the net, and he rimmed it around the wall. And I saw that he made a mistake. Marcel was there, and I went right from the bench. I went to the front of the net. There was no one there, no goalie, and I yelled in French, Marcel! And he just passed it to me, and I tipped it the empty net. That was my first shift. I think I saw a replay the other day. I think it was going in without me tipping in, but I'll take it anyway. But that's how it happened for me. It was so quick. I mean,
yeah. Jimmy, how about you? Game number 2 for you.
Yeah, so we were at home at the Forum, and I remember it was a power play, and it was, and I've actually got a picture. Someone took a picture of it, and we were playing. I think Chico Resch was the goalie then, the backup goalie because Billy Smith was the main goalie, and then I'll never forget. We had a power play, and they put me on the point on the power play, which I was like so nervous. Like Pat Quinn told me, hey, go on the point on this one. And up front you had Marcel, you had Dave Taylor, Luke, and then I remember I got the puck. I was on the off point, and I got it, and then I was coming in, and I kind of went to my backhand, and the goalie kind of charged me, and I went to my backhand going in the corner, and I just flicked it in. And then I'll never forget, like looking at the picture, like I see, like Dennis Potvin's in there. You just look at all the they're all named players that are on there. So it was a huge thrill. Like you said, it was great to get that first goal and, take the edge off.
Yeah. Jimmy had quite a career, 626 games, 275 goals. Quite a ratio in his 10 years in the NHL. Steve, game number 3 for you. If my research is correct, you were not in the opening night lineup, but Pat Quinn made some changes for games 2 and then 3 and 4, and you got in the lineup. And in your third game, you got a goal. Was it in Detroit?
Yeah, I think it was in LA against Detroit.
Okay.
But I do remember the first game not playing, and I think we lost. We lost pretty bad. But Pat coming to me and says, "Kid, be ready. You're gonna play them all." And frankly, Pat was unreal to me. Just I can't recall who was my first teammate. I think it was Dean Kennedy or Barry Beck in those days. And but he played me like mistake, no mistake. He just played me and really helped my confidence that way. But yeah, the first game I remember watching from the stands, and I was so nervous when he told me after the game, "You're going to be in." And after that, then I don't remember how I scored, but I'm sure it was my powerful slap shot from the point.
You went end to end, Douche. You went end to end.
Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
And then you flew in the air.
That's how I remember it. You're right.
Yeah, there's a statue of that outside the Staples.
Outside Boston.
Yeah, that's what I tell all my friends. That's me. Yes.
Yeah. You guys mentioned Pat Quinn, your coach, your rookie year. What was it like playing for him? And obviously, all 3 of you wind up playing a lot in your first year. Your statistics bear that out. Luke, what did that mean to you and your start to have someone like Pat Quinn as your coach?
Well, if I just speak for myself, he was so good. Like he I think I was scared of him. Like he
Me too.
A ton of respect. But there was something, he was very respectful all the time. And he kind of, I don't want to speak for Jimmy or Steve, but for me, he left me alone. Like, he every once in a while, he would talk or he'd make a couple comments about the game. But like Steve says, I felt like he was just letting me play. I wasn't really thinking. I was just going out there and playing the game. And, he was, as long as you stayed within the lane of what was expected out of the team or the team game. That's what I remember of him. He was so respectful. And I think looking back now, he knew that we were really young and he had to give us some room and we were going to make mistakes and he was going to let us be free to a certain degree. And I certainly feel like he did that to me.
Luke led the team in his rookie year in scoring, still the only King player in franchise history to lead the team as a rookie. Jimmy, how about you? Centerman, obviously. And when you start that season, you've got two established centers on the roster in Marcel Dion and Bernie Nichols.
Before I answer that, I just want to say a word about Pat Quinn. He was a great first coach for, I think, the three of us. I agree with Luke. He did leave us alone as long as Luke said within your lane. And the assistant coaches, I know in my case, Mike Murphy a lot, and Steve, I think for you, Phil Muir was with you a lot, and et cetera. But what I really respected about Pat, I knew a little bit about his career, played for the Maple Leafs and some other teams, and he was a very tough, rugged player. I think one time he decked Bobby Orr and almost like ended his career. And then his career got shortened, I think, because of a skateboard thing. But I just remember seeing him, this big, tough guy. But when you were with him, he was intelligent. He had his law degree. He was a very smart hockey guy, very respectful to you, but firm and like a leader. And I really thought someone like that showed you kind of like the totality of having hockey knowledge, but being a nice, respectful man, but also having the kind of the gravitas of playing. And everyone knew how tough he was when he played. And he was just very fair. Like, just go out and do your best, and he'll coach accordingly. And there were really no mind games with Pat Quinn, where sometimes you get coaches who play mind games and you're just like always kind of on edge. It was just kind of very blunt. Here's where we're going, and that's that. So I really admired him as a coach and as a person. So, but to your question, yeah, for me, Marcel was like an all-time great. Luke lived with Marcel. I lived next door. So we would be riding to pregame meals, ride to practice, ride to games. And, Marcel was kind of that old crusty veteran, and you'd hear stories from Marcel and just kind of like a little edgy, and it was really cool. But then you think, like, this is Marcel. This guy's like an all-time great. So, and then Bernie was kind of, entering the prime of his career. So I didn't really think of like, I'm in competition. I just thought, okay, go to training camp. I'm good enough to make this team. I got to show it. Well, of course, you get to training camp, you're so nervous, and you just want to go try to show something and hope that you get an opportunity. Okay, so when they brought me back, I think, okay, well, I've made the team. So now the next step is, okay, try to compete for some ice time. And then it's like, try to compete for some power play time. And then it just kind of, it goes forward. But I never really viewed it as like a zero-sum game of, okay, I've got to go and take Bernie's minutes away or Marcel's minutes away. We just were, you were just young, and 18 years old in my case in the NHL, thrilled to death, dream come true, and meeting some new guys and friends and trying to do the best you can.
Yeah, your rookie year, 37 goals, 79 points. You were third on the team in scoring. Steve, what about Pat Quinn, the influence? Obviously, you're a defenseman. Pat was a defenseman, so probably a little bit more teaching for you from Pat early on.
Yeah, but pretty much like the Luke and Jimmy had said, he would leave me alone, and a few things obviously defensively would tell me, focus on better positioning, and like I mentioned it 3 times already, Pat really is the one that got me going in the NHL, and I was so happy to see him a few years ago in the outdoor game, Detroit. We had an outdoor game in Detroit, and Pat was there, and being able to sit with him before his passing, God rest his soul, with his wife, and to tell him how thank you so much for everything that you've done for me. And of course, he's so gracious. He was saying that, hey, I had nothing to do with it. It was you. But yeah, it's when I talk about my NHL career to start up, it's Pat Quinn is definitely the guy that comes up for me, most important person.
Yeah. Well said, Steve. Now your rookie year, the expectations you had. I mean, Jimmy, you're 18, second round pick, second overall. Steve, you had played in New Haven in the AHL the year before. And Luke, you had been to camp a couple of times. You were an 84 draft, and then in 86, you turned pro. What kind of expectations did you have? Luke, obviously in junior, a big scorer. Did you figure that that's what you had to do to be a good NHL player?
I don't know what expectation. I had. I just, like Jimmy, I wanted to make the NHL. I wanted to play. And then, you know, after the first game, like, I'm like, oh God, I better get ready for the next game, because I was always scared that I was going to get replaced. So then the next game, I got ready for the next game and try to be the best every day. But expectation, I think when your first year or two in the NHL, you're really trying to establish yourself, and you want to make sure. I mean, this is the NHL. This is something we all grew up watching and dreaming about. So I felt like I was kind of living my dream. So I didn't want to give that up. And then I think after a year or two, you're like, okay, we got to win. You know, you realize like things get to the next level. But I would say my first year, my expectation was, when I finished the first game, I'm like, man, I hope I play the next game. You know, and you wanted to just keep on playing. I mean, it was like, that's the type of pressure I put on myself, you know.
And Jimmy, I know you talked about it just a few moments ago about your first year, but did you feel any of that weight being such a high draft choice that you had to come in and show everybody that you were worthy of where they drafted you?
Yeah, there was a little pressure with that, no question about it. But to go what Luke was saying, you know, it really wasn't calculating. You got to camp, you just wanted to show that you belonged. And maybe in my case, a tad more because of the pressure of being, you know, a first round, second overall. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to get to camp and like embarrass myself and say, this guy, what a horrible pick. So then you get there and then you're like, okay, I'm doing okay. And then, like I said earlier, you just want to make the team, and then you want to get some minute, like some ice time. And Luke's right. Like you're like in a fog. You're living 24/7, game to practice to the next game to road trip. And you know, like you lose 3 in a row. It's like, okay, what happens now? Does the coach come in and yell, or does the captain yell at you? Like, you don't know. You're just sitting there with your eyes wide open. And then you're just sitting like, what's the next thing? And you're a rookie, so you don't really say much until like someone points at you and say, what do you think? And then you don't know what to say. And then you just kind of move on. And then all of a sudden you start having some success, and the media or other people start asking for your opinion. And then you start coming into your own skin a little bit. Where like real early on, you're just going from, you know, like moment to moment, game to game.
And our travel was hard, huh, guys? It was like
Middle seat.
on those long trips. You never knew if it was Monday, Wednesday, or Saturday. Just when you're on, we had no clue. I mean, it was like we were always sleeping.
Bowling in Winnipeg and middle seat.
No charter planes back then.
No charter plane. Yeah.
I remember we'd have an East Coast game in Philly or New York, and you'd get up early, you'd fly across country, and the first time, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, we're having practice. I was like, what? You know, you just had a 5-hour flight. You've probably slept 3 hours because you couldn't go to sleep after the game. You've got an 8 a.m. flight. You're exhausted. And then you land, and you just want to go back and take like a 4-hour nap. And instead of, oh yeah, we got practice, everyone get to Culver City. You're like,
yeah, that's right. Because we couldn't sleep on the plane, because if we fell asleep, like Bernie Nichols or some guys would do something to us, like cut our ties. So we'd have to find a way to sleep on the plane. We always had the middle seat because we were rookies. That was hard. You're right.
I remember Marcel, as soon as he'd sit down, 5-hour flight, he'd go put his head there and he's snoring. He'd sleep like 4 or 5 the whole flight. He said, oh, I feel great. We can go practice now. Like, okay.
We had a tough team too. My rookie year, thank goodness I couldn't speak English very well, so it helped me not to do interviews after games. But like Jimmy and Luke said, we were in LA, so everybody mentioned LA. Oh, it's gonna be hard to play hockey, and so we were trying to focus on doing well on the ice. But I was so scared that year. Tiger Williams was my roommate, and Tiger hated the French guys before Luke came on the team, and because Luke was a superstar, so he was my roommate. At 9 o'clock, tea was off, and we were going to sleep. And I'm in bed, not moving, not saying a word. And I also remember one time I got hit by a slap shot on the ankle, and of course I'm flopping on the ice, and the trainer has to come to see me. And so when I came to the bench, Tiger said, "Kid, if you ever do that again, if you don't skate back to the bench, I'm going to hit you myself." I was so scared. those were the good days, I tell you.
The rule with Marcel for me, like when we were on the road, he'd say, because this is the days we didn't have any clickers in most hotels, so he'd say, all right, kid, you're gonna have to get up and go turn off the TV. And I'd always fall asleep before him. He'd be all mad. He'd have to get up and go turn off the TV.
Luke, you mentioned Marcel. And another tie-in between the three of you. You played with Marcel, and you guys also played later on in your career for a couple of you, Wayne Gretzky. But as you look back, the experience you had as a teammate of Marcel Dion, who was one of only 7-8 players to score 700 goals. Luke, I know he was special for you because you, as a rookie, were living with him. He took you in.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he was special for all of us because he guided us, like he's the guy, it was the same with Dave. We lean on these guys on guiding us. On the road, we go to dinner with them. And for me, living at his house, I was supposed to help his kids to learn to speak French. As it turned out, they taught me how to speak English, but I didn't help them one bit. But, it was special. I mean, I don't think I realized how good, because we hadn't seen Marcel that much. We knew all his numbers, but I had never really seen him live, and I didn't realize how good he was until later. But I do recall on the ice him saying, just let me skate with the puck between, the two blue lines, and when I get in the zone, just go to net, and I'll put it there for you. And I didn't know what he meant, but he had a knack, like little things he would do, like he would just turn around, and his hands were really close, and he would just put it about a foot off the ice, and he never missed a net. And he made sure like there was a rebound for us there all the time. It's amazing when you think that he thought of that. He was doing all these little things to help, and he was a heck of a player. It's amazing when you think of how tall he was and so forth and what he's done. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And Jimmy, being a center yourself, I mean, I'm sure there were things that you picked up from him that helped you progress as a player in your career.
There's no question. Well, first of all, so when I was a young kid, when the Red Wings were playing at Olympia Stadium, I actually would go see Marcel, and he was before the big controversy of him leaving the Red Wings to go to the Kings. He was a star and like real young in his career, and so I actually I knew some of like the Red Wing front office people. So I had met his wife Carol a number of times. And I would sit like with kind of where all the wives sat, and we would joke about it years later. She's making pregame meal, but Marcel, and he called me right away, like first day of training camp, or after I made the team, he's like, okay, listen, Luke's going to live with me. I want you living right next door. He says, it's a good thing. We'll go together back and forth. And he was such a good influence, not only like when you'd be at his house or in the car, but even after a game, he'd pull me aside and say, listen, don't get frustrated. Or he'd say, I remember one thing he said, Luke will appreciate this. The first time I saw Marcel was, we were in, as a teammate, we were in Victoria, British Columbia for training camp, and we were having a game against the Canucks. And like Luke is right, Marcel was small, but you just look at his legs. He had these tree trunk legs, and he's motoring along, and he's like really fast, and you're just, didn't necessarily have the ultimate hockey body when you see him, but with those legs were just amazing.
Especially at camp.
Yeah, especially at camp. So, but I just remember him zipping around, and he always would shoot the puck, and he always would tell me, he says, I don't care where you are. If someone's not open, you put it at the net. And he was shooting. There are some games he's getting 4 or 5 shots a period. And he's like, they'll go in eventually. And I just remember he said, a lot of times instead of that odd dumping, you'd see Marcel just launching one at the net. He says, you never know. That was one of the early things he would always tell me.
How about for you, Steve?
Marcel.
Marcel's certainly a star player in juniors and in the NHL when you break in.
Yeah, and he helped me as well. He found a family, and I was in Redondo Beach, and I wasn't as close to these two here that Marcel, but I remember Marcel. I mean, obviously on the ice is amazing, and his laugh. I mean, I can't forget he was laughing all the time, and And one funny story, if you remember that, you guys, when Bernie Nichols, Marcel came to the rink late, and one time, and Bernie, I think, had cut his laces. So he had to come on the ice real quick, late, of course. And he came on the ice and he threw his stick in the stands, and he was so upset. Said, we're a losing team and we're screwing around. So do you guys remember that story?
Oh yeah.
Wow, I couldn't believe it. After that, it was like, but yeah, those are fun stories on the ice. It was great, but those things off the ice that was happening, it really marked me as well. See how respected he was.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing that the three of you all have in common, you left the Kings. All three of you were traded early in your career, but the Kings reacquired you. What was that experience like coming back to where it all started, Luke, for you?
I mean, it's like I said earlier, that this is where, I started with the Kings. So coming back felt very comfortable. Coming back and seeing the same people, seeing you, seeing Bob, and it just felt very comfortable. I feel like this is where I grew up, and so coming back was, it was a great feeling, and it was comfortable.
Jimmy, how about you? You were, of course, involved in arguably the biggest trade in NHL history, the Gretzky deal. You go to Edmonton after 2 years in LA, but then the Kings reacquire you and you're playing with Wayne Gretzky. What was your thought process back then when you were back to where it began for you?
So that's a great question. So when I look back, the early years, you had the purple and gold, Marcel, and the Kings were, kind of a laggard. Didn't make the playoffs a lot, other than the miracle on Manchester and maybe a couple other highlights over the years. But suddenly we felt, with the three of us and then the team, Bernie, et cetera, that we were kind of a young team on the uprise. Okay, so then you have the big Gretzky trade. They changed the jersey colors, and suddenly LA went from a mediocre to up-and-coming hockey town with a lot of transplants to a big hockey town, like overnight, where the Hollywood people wanted to be seen there, and it was a big thing. And then you have the Ducks coming in, and just hockey in the Western U.S. really took off, large part because of that trade. So I'll never forget, Bruce McNall had told me at the time, he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "I feel really bad about trading you." I said, "Not that bad," but anyways, but he said, "I'll try to get you back." So anyways, to come back, and then that was the run. Where we lost to the Canadiens in the Stanley Cup. And I just remember one time as we were Stanley Cup finals, looking around saying, wow, this has really become a hockey city. Like the whole city was just on fire. You could have been, it's like a lot of other cities that, maybe not quite Montreal, but it was just a true hockey city. You're like, wow, this has really come a long ways. And to be a small part of that run in '93 was a very exciting time.
Yeah. And Steve, for you, I know you were playing in a lot of different cities: Philly, Quebec, St. Louis, Ottawa, St. Louis again. And then later on in your career, you're back with the Kings. I think, wasn't Dave Taylor the GM then that he brought you back? What was that like for you?
Well, I tell you, Nick, that's probably the biggest disappointment for me. We talk about it now, and it brings back a lot of emotion. And by that is, started my career in LA and had my, learn English, my nickname, which is another story itself. But, and then, leaving and coming back, I was so excited to come back. Of course, coming back with Luke, and really it was a fiasco for me personally. And to this day, I regret not playing better. And, it's one of those things that you get put more pressure on your shoulder. You want to try to score. You want to try to do good. And it felt like it was quicksand. I got worse and worse. And that's my biggest, but not being able to do well for the contract they had given me. And obviously seeing the Kings going to the Cup finals. But I regret that. I'm so sorry to the fans and to the Kings organization for not performing the way I should have been performing. So that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. You played 1,113 games, 752 points. Steve Duchesne, third in the Kings all-time scoring list among defensemen, behind only Drew Doughty and Rob Blake. 3 Kings from the all-rookie team, the only team in NHL history to have 3 players on the all-rookie team in the same year. Joining us on this session of Kings Legends, Luc Robitaille, Jimmy Carson, Steve Duchesne. Guys, thanks. It's been a blast. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Nice
Nick.
seeing you
Nice
guys.
seeing you guys.